Outlander. Time travel, danger, and a love that defies centuries. When Outlander moved from Diana Gabaldon's pages to the screen, it wasn't just adapted. It was unleashed. The show begins with Claire Randall, a World War II nurse who accidentally steps through ancient stones in Scotland and finds herself thrown back to 1743. And from the moment she lands in that dangerous century, the story becomes this gripping mix of history, mystery, and impossible love. What makes Outlander iconic isn't just the time travel twist, but how real every moment feels. Claire isn't treated like a heroine from a fantasy world. She's a woman out of her time, fighting to survive in a place where even speaking too boldly can get her accused of witchcraft. Then she meets Jamie Fraser, and suddenly the story transforms. Their connection is instant yet complicated, fiery yet gentle. The show takes their relationship and builds it slowly, layer by layer, until it becomes one of TV's most beloved romances. But romance isn't all Outlander has to offer. It has massive battles, political tensions, painful betrayals, and the constant threat of history pulling the characters apart. What the show captures so perfectly from the books is the feeling that every choice has a consequence. Every turn holds a danger, and every chapter of Claire and Jamie's lives is shaped by the past and the future colliding. It's sweeping, emotional, brutal, hopeful, and endlessly addictive. That's why Outlander didn't just become a show. It became a phenomenon. Big Little Lies. Secrets that look perfect from far away. When Big Little Lies jumped from Liane Moriarty's novel to the screen, it created a world that felt calm on the surface and explosive underneath. The story takes place in Monterey, a picture-perfect coastal town where parents sip lattes, kids go to elite schools, and everyone pretends life is flawless. But just like the book, the show reveals how every smile hides a bruise, every compliment masks jealousy, and every family has its own quiet storm brewing. The TV adaptation grabs you from the very first episode because of its structure. You know a terrible crime has happened, but you don't know who the victim is. And from there, the story keeps cutting between glossy daytime scenes and dark, tense police interviews, creating this slow burn mystery that never loosens its grip. Each woman, Celeste, Madeline, Jane, and the others, carries her own secret, her own pain, and her own version of the truth. The show lets their stories unfold with the same emotional honesty as the book, but with a cinematic punch that makes every moment feel sharper. What makes Big Little Lies iconic is how it balances elegance with intensity. One minute you're looking at stunning ocean views, the next you're watching a storyline so raw it stops you in your tracks. The friendships feel real, the conflicts feel heavy, and the finale, well, it hits exactly the way a climax should. Shocking, heartbreaking, and deeply satisfying. In the end, the show doesn't just adapt the book, it amplifies it, turning a quiet suburban mystery into one of television's most unforgettable emotional thrill rides. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch these videos without subscribing. Imagine what we could accomplish if everyone subscribed. We all thank you for your continued support. The Witcher. Monsters, magic, and a destiny that refuses to let go. When The Witcher stepped out of Andrzej Sapkowski's novels and onto the screen, it brought with it a world that felt ancient, dangerous, and buzzing with the kind of magic that comes with a price. At the center of it all is Geralt of Rivia, a monster hunter who has spent his entire life trying to avoid the politics, drama, and chaos of the continent. But destiny, as the story keeps reminding him, has other plans. The show captures something incredibly important from the books. Geralt isn't just a fighter. He's a thinker, a loner, someone who constantly questions what's right in a world where lines blur easily. And while he slays monsters with elegance and brute force, he also deals with the monsters inside people: greed, cruelty, and fear. The adaptation uses its time-jumping structure to slowly weave together Geralt's path with Yennefer's journey and Ciri's fate, building a story that feels like a puzzle snapping into place piece by piece. Yennefer's rise from a rejected outcast to a powerful sorceress gives the show its emotional fire. Ciri's escape from a fallen kingdom adds urgency and mystery. And Geralt, with his gravelly voice and unbothered attitude, becomes the steady anchor holding the story's chaos together. What makes The Witcher iconic is how it blends dark fantasy with human vulnerability. The battles are fierce, the magic is unpredictable, and the politics run deep. But the heart of the story is about connection, protection, and a destiny that insists on uniting three people who never asked for each other. By the time their stories collide, you're fully locked in. And you finally understand why The Witcher became a global phenomenon the moment it hit the screen. The Expanse. A future where humanity repeats its past mistakes. When The Expanse lifted off from the pages of James S.A. Corey's novels and landed on screen, it didn't just give us another sci-fi show, it delivered a universe that felt real, not shiny, not perfect, not overly futuristic. Real. A future where humans have spread across the solar system, but the same old problems have followed them. Greed, power struggles, and fear of the unknown. What the adaptation captures beautifully is that space isn't the enemy. People are. The story begins with tension already boiling. Earth, Mars, and the Belters are locked in a cold war of politics and distrust. Then, one mysterious event sparks everything into chaos. The discovery of the proto-molecule, a substance that behaves like nothing humanity has ever seen. Suddenly, governments panic, corporations interfere, and ordinary people are caught in the crossfire. That's where the Rocinante crew shines. They're not chosen ones, not perfect heroes. They're survivors who stumble into a secret big enough to change the system forever. The show brings each character's complexity straight from the books. Holden's stubborn morality, Naomi's hidden past, Amos's chilling calm, Alex's loyalty. Together, they create a bond that feels raw, tense, and honest. And the world building, gritty ships, cramped space stations, cultures shaped by gravity itself, makes everything feel alive. The Expanse doesn't rush its storytelling. It builds layer after layer until you're deep inside a political thriller disguised as science fiction. What sets The Expanse apart is its respect for reality. Physics matter. Choices matter. Consequences hit hard. And every moment reminds you that humanity doesn't escape its flaws just by leaving Earth. It carries them into the stars. Sharp objects. A mystery wrapped in trauma and small-town shadows. When Sharp Objects moved from Gillian Flynn's chilling novel to the screen, it brought with it the kind of atmosphere that gets under your skin and stays there. This is not a loud story. It doesn't rely on jump scares or dramatic chases. Instead, it invites you to step quietly into the troubled mind of Camille Preaker, a journalist who returns to her hometown to investigate the murders of two young girls. But the moment she arrives, the town's charm feels like a disguise, and the truth beneath it is dark, suffocating, and deeply personal. The show captures Camille exactly as Flynn wrote her. Vulnerable yet sharp, broken yet determined. Her past trauma follows her like a shadow, and every street, memory, and family interaction reveals another layer of the pain she's been carrying for years. What the adaptation does incredibly well is visualize this internal chaos. You see flashes of her past, snippets of words carved on skin, and haunting images that blur the line between memory and reality. It's storytelling that feels slow, heavy, and intentionally uncomfortable. Windgap, the town itself, becomes a character. The heat, the gossip, the traditions, the secrets. Everything presses down on Camille as she tries to uncover the truth while barely holding herself together. And of course, the show's final reveal hits with the same force as the book. quiet, chilling, and unforgettable. Sharp Objects stands out because it doesn't hurry. It doesn't aim to solve a mystery. It aims to make you understand it. Every moment builds toward a truth that's more tragic than shocking, and in the end, the story leaves you breathless. Not because of the twists, but because of the emotions beneath them. You, obsession, illusion, and the danger of a charming narrator. When you made the jump from Caroline Kepnes's novel to the screen, it brought along one of the most unsettling narrators TV has ever seen. Joe Goldberg isn't introduced as a villain. He's introduced as someone who thinks he's the hero. The show leans into that perspective so cleverly that you find yourself listening to his calm explanations, his justifications, his version of events, even when your instincts are screaming that something about him is very, very wrong. The adaptation captures Joe's voice perfectly. His thoughts are smooth, poetic, almost reasonable. But his actions? They're manipulative, obsessive, and dangerous. This contrast is what makes You iconic. It's not about a man who falls in love. It's about a man who believes love gives him permission to cross any boundary, erase any obstacle, and rewrite someone else's life. And all of this happens in modern New York and Los Angeles, cities full of noise, ambition, social media, and the kind of digital footprints Joe uses like a map. The show also expands on the novel by giving the women in Joe's life more depth, more voice, and more agency. Beck, Love, and the people around them become fully realized characters rather than just pieces of Joe's narrative. That shift makes the story more intense, more layered, and more heartbreaking. And as Joe moves from city to city, changing identities but keeping the same twisted idea of love, the tension only grows. What You does brilliantly is expose how easy it is to hide darkness behind charm, good looks, and a gentle smile. It forces you to question everything, every relationship, every motive, every well-spoken stranger. And it never lets you forget that the scariest villains are often the ones who believe they're doing the right thing. Good Omens, an unlikely friendship that saves the world. Again and again. When Good Omens stepped from the pages of Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman's novel and onto the screen, it brought with it a perfect storm of humor, heart, and heavenly chaos. The story begins with a simple idea. An angel and a demon have grown so fond of Earth that they're not willing to let it end. Aziraphale, the gentle, anxious angel, and Crowley, the effortlessly cool demon, form one of the most charming partnerships television has ever seen. Their chemistry is instant, warm, and mischievous, the kind of friendship that feels centuries old because, well, it is. The adaptation keeps the book's witty tone alive. Every scene blends clever dialogue with quirky visuals, making the apocalypse feel more like a cosmic misunderstanding than a battle of good versus evil. While heaven and hell prepare for war, Aziraphale and Crowley are busy doing something far more interesting, trying to prevent it. They eat, they argue, they panic, they plan, and they do it all with the energy of two coworkers who have been stuck on the same assignment for 6,000 years. What the show adds is emotional depth. We get to see how deeply these two care about each other and about humanity. Their bond becomes the heart of the narrative, transforming a comedic fantasy into a story about loyalty, identity, and the courage to choose your own side. Surrounding them is a cast of prophets, witches, misplaced antichrists, and confused supernatural beings, all moving within a universe that balances chaos with charm. Good Omens succeeds because it remembers what made the book special. Humor rooted in humanity. Instead of focusing on the end of the world, it celebrates the messy, lovable world Aziraphale and Crowley are fighting so hard to protect. The Walking Dead, survival, humanity, and the cost of staying alive. When The Walking Dead rose from Robert Kirkman's comics to television, it quickly became a cultural phenomenon. On the surface, it's a story about zombies, but from the start, the show makes one thing clear. The walkers aren't the biggest threat. People are. It opens with Rick Grimes waking in a hospital, stepping into a world empty, eerie, and forever changed. From that moment, survival becomes a daily negotiation, not just with the undead, but with the living, shaped by fear, loss, and desperation. The show captures the weight of human choices brilliantly. Every group Rick encounters, the Governor, Negan, the Wolves, the Whisperers, tests morality in different ways, showing what happens when society collapses and power outweighs compassion. The tone shifts constantly. Some episodes feel like action-packed thrillers, others like slow, emotional studies of grief and hope. The characters come alive with depth and vulnerability. Michonne's quiet strength, Daryl's loyalty forged by pain, and Carol's transformation from fearful mother to resilient survivor make the story deeply human. The show isn't afraid of heartbreak or showing how people change, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. What makes The Walking Dead iconic isn't just survival. It's the moments of family, trust, courage, and sacrifice that remind us humanity isn't defined by the world you live in, but by the choices you make within it. From time-traveling love stories to dark superhero worlds, these adaptations show the magic of turning pages into unforgettable screen moments. Each story captivates in its own way, proving that the best books don't just live on shelves, they come alive on screen. If you enjoyed watching, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and drop us a note in the comments letting us know what you want to see us do next.